Welcome to Conscious Conversations. I'm Amy Woodall. I want to invite you into a series called Not Sorry with Dr. Ashley Butler. This series is a space for high achieving women who feel like they've done everything right, but maybe things feel misaligned. And we can often, as high achievers, paint ourselves into a life that no longer fits, but we're so afraid of admitting that out loud for whatever reason. And so in this series, we're going to explore questions that we're often afraid to ask. We're going to look at permission and power and really digging into purpose and what it means to build a life that actually fits where you are right now. So glad that you're here. Let's get started. We are back with another Not Sorry episode with Dr. Ashley Butler. And such a great first episode, by the way. I just want to say that I had a chance to listen to it recently, and I've gotten some really great feedback. We've gotten great feedback from listeners. And so today we're digging into this topic that I think many of us, no matter where we are in life, that we can reflect and see ourselves in. And it's leaning in to give ourselves permission. And I want to just start with why permission is so important. You know, where was it for you that you had to be tired of our own shit? Because I think that's when we make change. We have to be so sick and tired of our own shit that we're willing to do something different. But where does this permission piece really stick out for you in your own journey?
I think the first time that I really started to hone in and reflect was really just after I had decided to walk away from my Sherry. And then I went on that trip to Sedona. I shut a business down, ended up in the desert, left with 2 tattoos. And that was really that'll be a story for another time.
And
But that
she
was,
did, yes.
um, I think that was really the first time I had given myself permission to just be and to pause and to not really care what anyone else thought of my next move. And from there, I came back home from Sedona and I went radio silent on pretty much everyone because I needed to kind of figure out some of this stuff for me. And that first part was leaning into the permission to do so, to stop performing.
Can you tell me a little bit about, I would love for the audience to hear a little bit about your process of what was happening in the shutdown when you came back and you were like, I kind of had to go hide for self, preservation. I would imagine that it's reflection and all of this stuff, but take us back to that process. What was that like for you?
It was messy and it was super uncomfortable. And so that process, it became sort of just the permission initially to make it about that one day, right? Just that one day at a time. What am I doing today to figure out a bit more about who I really am when no one's watching and what I really want if it's just for me? And so I process a lot through writing. And so I started doing sort of a daily ritual, I guess. I would get up, I would meditate a bit, and then I would journal. And then I would just kind of go about my day just being. It was sort of strange, right? Because I shut this down, I stepped away, and I didn't really have any structure that we count on, right? That our jobs give us, that our day-to-day gives us. I didn't have to have any of that anymore. And my husband was like, well, just take a year off. And it's that's like letting a tiger out of its cage and just saying, hey, go, check some cool things out. And it's no, it doesn't understand what that feels like anymore. I felt like I had been set loose and I didn't know where I was going or what I was doing. So that process for me was really it was really about showing up for me every day, just in at least little bits, and trying to become a bit more comfortable with being very uncomfortable. Because all of these things that we talk about, right? Like the permission, the power, the purpose, all of that, it felt very deep for me. And it's not that I'm not a deep person. It's just I had never really had time. I had never really given myself a chance to go there, right? I'd always been super, super busy, like achieve, 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 go to the next step. And so this process for me was really about like, it was about unweaving sort of all of these threads that I had knotted up together and getting quiet to just listen to that inner voice for the first time, probably I would say, 20 years.
It's hard. It is so hard for high achievers to give themselves the permission to do nothing because the conundrum that high achievers face is like, I am so exhausted by my need to constantly achieve, but I'm terrified of who I will be if I don't achieve. And so this like, it's a back and forth, tug of war that we often have within ourselves when we're a high achiever. And yet it's what is needed to not replicate the same, I don't want to say mistakes, but it's like the same lessons. How do we not replicate the same lessons over and over and over again? We've got to have downtime for reflection because it is so easy to dream of like, my life would be so different if I were just in this position, if I were in a new job, in a new place, in a new relationship, etc. And yet you are still the same ass version of you. Like, but for better or for worse, you're still the same version of you wherever you go. And so giving yourself that permission, even in small moments, because I'm sure the bitch in the attic creeps in. It's got a lot to say. And so I'm sure it was a little bit of tug of war within self. What did you discover, though? What was the greatest discovery in the downtime? The greatest gift that you got from that?
Well, I want to comment on that tug of war because I don't want our audience to believe that I just like you go from like this strive, you're just at 120 miles an hour. And then what it felt like was I hit a wall. For the first time in my life, I hit this like hard ass wall that I wasn't able to just bounce right back from. But man, did I try. Right. So if I was pausing, yeah, I'd pause for like a couple of days. I'd really reflect. And I'm like, the timing worked out well. I operate very much in seasons. And so it was late fall moving into the winter. And I thought, great, I'm just like a tree. All of my leaves have fallen off. And now I am going to like just kind of figure some stuff out, right? Before I have to go and like blossom again. But that tension and reminding myself that no, this is my season for rest because I can't continue to grow if I don't give myself that opportunity. I mean, I think I spun up 2 LLCs in that rest period, right? Because I was like, "Oh, well, I'm just going to go and I'm going to figure my stuff out. 20 years worth of shit. I'm going to get that together in 3 months. And then I'm going to launch in the next year this new thing, and I'm going to have figured all of this stuff out." And so that process, that tug and that push and pull, I think is something really important that you hit on. And that's part of the permission to give yourself the opportunity to dream about that and to remember that you can come back to center and still be in your pause, right? So dreaming is different than doing, and knowing which way you want that direction to go when it is time to come out, I think is a super important point. So all of that to say, and then the greatest gift question, I think that the greatest gift for me was in that pause, in that reflection, that like permission for the first time to just be me. It was like, oh, well, I can be me for me, not for anyone else. And that's totally fine. And people are still in my corner, right? And I don't know, all of the like made up stories of the loss that I would experience as a result of believing that this pause was a failure, right? Making a conscious choice to step away from a company that was no longer aligned, despite the fact that it was successful, right? People look at you like you have a third eyelid. And that gift was me sort of unwrapping myself, like, and realizing that I am enough. I am enough.
Period. Yeah. With a period and an exclamation point of like, there's nothing more you need to do, nothing more you need to prove. This beautiful journey of like recognizing that your self-acceptance and we had a Dr. Laura Geller on the podcast. She had shared that we often believe that self-improvement and self-acceptance are one and the same, and they're two separate. And it's so important for us to remind ourselves of that. And I want to reflect back to you, something else you gave yourself permission to do is to feel. Because we often, and it's such a safety mechanism that we do, our body loves us so much, it's just always trying to keep us safe. Our mind loves us so much. That's why it makes up so many stories, because sometimes it's safer to feel uncertain than it is to feel clarity. It's all out of a place of love. That's such a message that I have been adamant about trying to remind myself and others of. And there are times when moving so that we don't have to is safer, like constant movement, new creation is safer than doing nothing, because then we'd have to feel it. And so giving yourself to just feel the uncomfortable, and what a gift. What a gift, because these emotions aren't going away in life. It's not like we get to some place in life, we reach the top of the mountain and we're like, I never have to feel shame or disappointment or fear. It never goes away. And so giving yourself that permission to feel, what has that taught you also in your journey? And I know you're working with women and teaching them these same things. So what did that permission of feeling allow you?
I think that the feeling, it allowed me to realize I'm trying to figure out how to separate these two things. So, I felt like I had spent my life doing, going, so that I didn't have to deal with those feelings. But when I started to sit with them, not ruminate, I think that that's a bit different, but I started to just let the feelings come. And when they happened, I didn't try to tamp them down, box them up, and shove them away. I just sat with it. And I realized that the decision making, my decision making, when I allowed myself to really feel and like really allow myself to lean into that part of who I am, my decision making, I feel, became stronger and more grounded because I wasn't running away from those feelings. I wasn't trying to escape them. And like diving deeper, even deeper than that, to me, the feelings and sort of the logical thought, right? Underneath those two things are like who I really am and what I really want. But it felt like I had never moved beyond the logical thought down into the feelings to get deeper into like who I am and what I want. But going through that process and being more comfortable there allowed me to go a bit deeper, right? And then you start to work your way back up. I don't know if that visual will come through appropriately via audio, but I felt like I had lived very surface level, which was do, go, achieve, repeat, right? And so then coming down into the feelings was super uncomfortable, but I had to suss through that as well in order to get even deeper to be able to have this conversation with you today.
I love that you made the separation in the beginning of the difference of feeling them versus rumination. And I mean, it's not, this is not rocket science, but it was to my brain when I learned it and had to learn give myself permission to feel, is that our feelings are meant to be felt, not thought. And often we have a feeling and we immediately go into problem solving of like, how do I solve my way? What's the next thing I can do in order to get myself out of this emotion? And to just sit with it and breathe with it and say, it's okay that you're here. And I think, how would you make the distinction of like rumination, just for the audience's sake? How would I know if I'm allowing myself to sit and process the feeling and honor it truly versus ruminating and, stirring that pot?
Yeah. So for me, at least, this the way that I can tell that there's a difference is really when I start to move into the, okay, how can I fix it? How can I fix it? Or I have a desire to get another cat. Then I know that I am trying to shove that away, right? So like moving into fix mode, right? The problem solving, I think that you hit the nail on the head there. And when I'm like, nope, that is not a problem to solve, right? This feeling, this emotion is not a problem to solve. It is something I am experiencing right now. And that is okay. So when my brain starts to go down, like, how do I get rid of this feeling? That's when I know I'm starting to move into a space that is where I've spent a lot of time, and it's not super healthy for me to do that, right? Because then I'm making decisions that are not rooted in what I really want. It's rooted in an escape mechanism.
Yeah, I think I've seen kind of rumination happen in two different ways. Your point of solutioning, and then it just kind of runs around and it's like the how do I solve, how do I solve, how do I solve, how do I fix, how do I fix? And we can solve it 13 different ways and yet it still doesn't go anywhere. And that's a sign that feelings are meant to be felt. Emotions are energy in motion. Um or the other thing is like we can get stuck really stuck in the story of just the justification of it, and we wanna hold on to that feeling for whatever reason, and honestly, it's because this feels safer than that, right? Right now, being committed to this story that this is what I'm worthy of or what I'm allowed for, whatever, is safer than what the alternative is, and what a beautiful practice. I remember I have a very I'll share with the audience my own permission example. I remember we were in the midst of our oldest son, graduating. Our 2 pets had just died, and there was just a lot of like, I had just gone off and left the career that I was in for over 10 years, started Conscious Habit, full time, and I remember I had been carrying around this feeling of overwhelm that I just kept trying to shove off, like, just work my way through it, work my way through it, and it's kind of like this nagging in my ear, and I wasn't sleeping well, like, it was literally following me around like a shadow everywhere, and I remember sitting in my bed and saying giving myself the permission to be like, "Okay, overwhelm, just come on, let's feel it. Let's feel all the heaviness of overwhelm." And sat and breathed with it, and I'm like, what do you want me to know?" And, like, just really getting curious, giving myself permission to, like, feel the heavy stuff. And within 5 minutes, I could begin to feel a lift, and it's like that's all it wanted was just my attention. It just needed me to give it permission to be seen, and then it didn't follow me around like a heavy cloud, and I think high achievers doing nothing can be the greatest aha. We can find the greatest wisdom in the quiet.
Well, and I think too that the other thing is, my pause was significantly longer than I thought it was going to be. And I'm not saying to anyone that, in order to find this sort of peace within yourself or to discover these things that you have to step away from the world for 2 years, and that was just my process. But I think that honoring that, in a regular fashion, right? Giving yourself those moments, whatever that looks like. And I think for each person, right, we're all on our own journey. We have to figure out what that looks like for us. But to your point too about the overwhelm, Amy, I mean, I think there was a saying when I was a resident, and I'm certain it's still there, and it's like you can do anything for 24 hours, right? You can do anything for 24 hours because, well, when you're in that world, you're not sleeping, you're not eating, you're not taking bathroom breaks. And so you just put your head down, and then you learn to put your head down, and it's like that 24 hours never fucking ends. Um, and then you get used to it, right? And so then it just becomes something that you carry and you carry and you carry, and you think you're just gonna put your head down, you're gonna keep going. And because you've done that for so long, then you don't know what it feels like anymore to release that thought process.
The patterns of our life. And I think for this episode, when you and I were talking about it, it's just looking at where are the areas of life that we may not give ourselves permission. And it's so relevant. I love that we started off with like just the being aspect, because anybody listening, like, where are the areas in life that you're ready for change? You know and sense it, but you're not giving yourself permission to sit and really reflect and know and understand, like, what is that change? Whether it's your health, whether it's relationships, whether it's your career, reflection is required so we do not rinse and repeat and then blame this new environment. How many people do we know who have gone from job to job to job to job, and it's always the job to blame, and yet there's one human at the center, right? Or relationship to relationship or diet to diet, or whatever, fill in the blank, and there's one human that's at the center that we're just not giving ourselves permission to sit and reflect and do the uncomfortable thing and feel and explore.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I was just having this conversation yesterday with a friend. He's about 10 years younger than I am, and I think that I've inserted myself into his life as sort of, unsolicited big sister advice. So we were talking yesterday, and, well, the first thing I will say this, he was like, "I haven't listened to all of your podcast yet." I said, "Why would I care if you listened to all of my podcast episode?" And he said, "Well, I wanted to come prepared." "Prepared for what?" I need to understand first what it is that you're coming prepared for. But as we were talking, he is also a high achiever, and, like recognizes like, and I think we found each other pretty early as we got connected. And he's young, he's ambitious, he's got a family that's, starting and growing, and he's sort of risen, through the ranks, and he said to me, "I'm just trying to make myself be content." And I said, "Well, how do you make yourself be something if you're not allowing yourself to sit with the discomfort and understand where this desire to just go, 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 achieve, achieve, achieve comes from?" And so, that's the big takeaway. I said, "Look, I'm 10 years ahead of you, and I can tell you that no amount of money is going to make you feel safe. No job title is going to soothe your ego. These are all like, this is an inside job, you know?" And so, really encouraging him to like lean into that, because geez, if I had had someone 10 years ago like having that conversation with me, eh, given my personality, maybe I would have been like, "Ah, thanks so much. Hold my beer. Watch me go." Right? But he is smarter than I am, so I think he listens a bit more. And I think that, that permission to be, it's just that's not what the world tells us is okay. The this concept that our worth is tied to our productivity and that everything follows beyond that is just such a load of BS.
Yeah, I think it's a foreign concept here, especially in the US. I don't know that it's that way everywhere. I think people kind of giggle at us Americans at times of just how serious we take everything, and we're always in a hurry and we have places to be. And you go anywhere else on vacation
Yeah.
and they're like,
What is your problem?
chill out.
Yeah.
Like, things do not have to be like, it has got to be on time and we were supposed to leave it. It's like, take a breath, right? And yeah, just deep, even like pausing to reflect and unlearn. And what a gift that he has you, somebody who's been there, who can say, hang on a second, I know exactly where it is that you're going. And I can tell you, I can tell you where the road ends. I can tell you exactly, what may be happening next. This permission to pause, I think that's the theme of today, truly, is this permission to pause. Are there other, aspects of life where we may not see or recognize that we've got to give ourselves this permission? for reflection? What if we feel like, okay, yeah, life's fine. It could be better, but what if I'm in that kind of scenario? Life feels okay. It could be better, but it's life's busy. We just kind of we're just running through the motions every single day. What advice would you give somebody who may be there?
I okay, well, I mean, not sorry is all about just saying the quiet parts out loud. So, here's what I will say. I've been there. I think that a lot of us go there because it's a numbing technique. The same way that I mean, I would pick up a glass of wine, right? If I just keep going and I don't have to pause, then I don't have to feel and I don't have to try to understand and reflect, right? Like the deeper recesses of what goes on in my mind. And so if you're there and you're like, okay, well, it could be better, but dot dot dot. I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, right? Like you've got all these boxes to check before you can like get back around to these things. What I would say is that reflection, that pause, that time that you're putting off, it's going to come back and bite you at some point. Either you're going to hit the wall, right, like I did, or maybe you get sick, right? Like eventually the pause is going to force itself upon you, I think, if you are unable to sort of give yourself that permission to do it on your terms. It will do it on its terms. And I think that that is a much more sort of jolting experience. Um, and so if you're going, like I'm not here to optimize anybody's life, right? I'm here to have a conversation about like at the end of the day, it's your choice. It's your choice. It's you can keep going, putting it off until tomorrow. Tomorrow will eventually pop up on you and it's going to come up in really unexpected ways. Or you can make a decision and make a choice to put yourself first above all of these other things and get quiet, right? I'm not going to tell you that you have to do like a morning ritual or you have to journal every day or you have to do this. I'm not trying to add another checkbox to tick off in the life of perfection that we're trying to live externally. What I'm saying is that if that is you, you know who you are and you know what choices you're making or not making to avoid it, right? And so I would encourage you to, this is my experience. I was afraid. I was afraid to go there because what would that mean? What would that do? Blah, blah, blah. I would encourage you to make friends with that fear and sit with that however you need to. I don't know if it's on your way to work, right? When you're driving kind of in autopilot, or if it's, 5 minutes after you wake up in the morning before the hubbub of the day really starts. Whatever that is, give yourself that permission to make a different choice.
I mean, this reflection, y'all, of like, you can't escape you, not even for 1 second. No matter what you do with your life, whether you're running the hamster wheel and just trying to keep up, because life does throw, especially if you're like, I'm busy, I got a job, I got a family, da, 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 I don't even have time to think about what I want. I'm so busy pouring my needs into everyone else. I love where Ashley's taking us is like just permission to even give yourself 5 minutes of silence to just hear what you may be wanting or needing, like even listening to your body. To your point, Ashley, if stress delayed, oh, it's fine. We can borrow. I mean, it's like we're on loan, right? It's eventually we got to pay the toll. Like it's going to come to us at some point in time. If we don't take time to just listen to what's my body need today. Stress is held in the body, not the mind, by the way. We tell people, I'm sure you and I have had this conversation of like, your mind is the last one to know when you're really stressed. Eventually it's going to come to us. And I think where this conversation can go for the listeners, or where we've taken it for the listeners, is whether you sense that you want to change and you're just afraid to give yourself permission to explore it, or you've been in the I've just kept myself busy so I don't have to think about the scary thought, know that all roads lead back to you. Literally, all roads lead back to you. And so I think for all of us, our process of learning how to be with ourselves is different, but eventually it's going to be you with you. Can I ask you, like, are you the person, did you have to learn how to like spend time, like go eat by yourself? Are there some things in this even permission? I remember the first time I ate alone in a restaurant, like, and just how proud I felt of myself after. But like, what are some of the pieces of being additionally that like we're building the muscle and not for you?
Yeah. So, amen to the eating alone. I thought, "Oh my god, everybody's staring at me, everybody's making up stories, all of these things," right? It feels very uncomfortable, and then you realize, like, nobody actually cares what it is that you're doing. And so, I for me, a couple of things where I am on my own. So I love to be outside, right? So one of the things that I will do regularly is to go out in nature. I think that the people think I'm insane. I take my shoes and my socks off and I will walk barefoot through the woods and then I'll find like a sunny patch and I'll just like go lay down, you know? And so yeah, they're like, "Oh, look, it's the like creepy lady who like hugs the trees." Um but these things for me, right, that being, I like to be in nature because for me, it's a reminder of, like, where I actually came from, right? Like, and that I am just a piece of a much bigger puzzle, and when I get stuck in main character syndrome, I try to go back there to remind myself. And then the other fun thing, and this came from a friend of mine who, she does solo trips quite frequently, and I love to write and to think and to just kind of be away, and she said, "You need to do a solo trip." So, I have my first solo trip scheduled, and I'm going to go to a cabin in the woods and for 3 days, and I'm just going to write, and I'm going to listen to some music, and I'm going to reflect and to just spend some time with me, where, I'm pretty far off the beaten path. So, like, I'll take my food and all of the things, and it's not too Shining-esque, I don't think red rum's gonna be on any of the walls, but for me, that feels very I'm a people person, and it's not always super comfortable to just, like, sit in a quiet room by yourself, But for me, that's been so empowering to realize that, like, what you said earlier is, like, it's you with you, right? And that takes practice to just be with you and to not have any return on investment that you're expecting at the end of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good challenge for the comfort zone. This you we were talking about this at breakfast, we had
We were.
coffee today, and it is anytime we're doing something that shifts our comfort, we've got our comfort zone that our 95% of our subconscious mind, it doesn't require any sort of challenge at all in order for us to remain in our comfort zone, right? That's why it feels so good. And the next phase out of comfort is fear. And just knowing that part of growth requires fear. And in the fear zone, we have this choice to listen to all of the things that will come up because when fear hits, our mind and body tries to protect us, so it tries to convince us of all of these things that could be true, right? So that's why we begin to future fear and we write the stories of what could happen. Da, 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 da. It's literally our mind and body just trying to protect us. And we might dance between comfort, fear, comfort, fear, comfort, fear, comfort, fear, until, at least for me, and I know for you too, I'm really hard headed and I have to learn the hard way and I have to get tired of my own shit and that I am willing to move beyond the fear and do it scared or just mad at that point in time. I'm just like pissed. I'm like, whatever, I'm going to do this. And then we get to learning and learning and learning and learning and over again until we have built new synapses. We've broken down old ones, built new ones, and now we have growth. And in seemingly small ways, Ashley, right? It could be stopping drinking coffee and switching to tea. It could be eating alone at a restaurant. It could be taking 5 minutes to breathe with yourself. But this is how we begin to anchor in small moments of permission so that we can give ourselves the big ones that we'll continue to talk about on the show.
Right. Yep, and it takes the practice, right? Just like anything, you're working out a muscle, and it doesn't happen overnight.
Mhm. We talked about going a different direction in this episode, which listeners, you'll trust me, you will hear it in future episodes, but I feel like this is such an important place to start is just permission to be and reflect. It truly is the first step, isn't it? When I'm stuck, I can jump to all of the let's go, let's take action. What's the next thing? What am I waiting for? But I really need the discomfort and the pause in order to create clarity.
Yes. Well, and yes, we thought that this episode was gonna go a totally different direction, and I think it's okay that it didn't because, I'm convinced that when we're here, we're sharing, right? We're in the energy, and what comes is what's needed. And so I hope that this meets the needs of someone today and that you're able to pause, give yourself the permission to do so, and be okay with that choice that you got to make. Thanks so much for listening to the Not Sorry series with me, Dr. Ashley Butler. If this resonated with you, I'd love to keep the conversation going. Subscribe to my Substack newsletter, Not Sorry with Dr. Ashley Butler. I read and reply to every message. I'll see you there.
Thank you for listening to Conscious Conversations. We are so grateful that you've spent this time with us. And if you loved this episode, we invite you to consider liking, sharing, rating, reviewing the show so that more people can find us. And if you have the desire to connect with more like-hearted humans like you on this planet, come join us in the PFN community under Conscious Conversations.